Section 4.3, Proportions. A proportion is defined as an expression of the equality of two ratios or rates. Basically, a proportion is a single fraction equal to another single fraction. It's basically just a ratio equal to another ratio. For example, is 2/3 equal to 8/12 a true proportion? In other words, is this statement true or false? To determine the answer, we can use something known as cross products or cross multiplication. Let's take 2 times 12, so we're going to work diagonally, and set it equal to 8 times 3. Again, we are working diagonally. So we end up with 2 times 12 equals 8 times 3. Let's determine if that's true. We end up with 24 equals 24. It is indeed a true proportion. How about 4/5 equals 8/9? Let's determine if it's a true proportion or not. Let's cross multiply, so we end up with 4 times 9 equals 8 times 5. And then we end up with 36 and 40. Those are not equal, therefore it is not a true proportion. If you look at the original problem and look specifically at the numerators, 4 times 2 equals 8, but 5 times 2 does not equal 9. If you make $32 in 6 hours, does that mean you make $90 in 8 hours? Let's determine whether or not that's true. Let's cross multiply. 32 times 8 equals 90 times 6. When we multiply, we end up with 256 and 540. They are not equal to each other, so it is not true. It's not a true proportion. Sometimes one of the numbers in a proportion is unknown. In a situation like that, you have to solve a proportion. In order to solve a proportion, you have to find a number to replace the unknown. The unknown is also known as a variable. It will be some letter from the alphabet, so that the proportion is true. Here's an example. 9/6 equals 3/n. See if you can determine the value of n mentally. The answer you should get for n is 2, but if you can't do it mentally, you can use cross multiplication. 9 times n equals 3 times 6. So at this point we have 9n equals 18. We have to get the n by itself. The 9 and the n are currently connected by multiplication, so to get rid of the 9, we have to do the opposite, which would be division. Whatever you do to one side of an equal sign, you have to do the same thing to the other side of an equal sign to maintain the balance. So what happens to the 9's on the left-hand side is that they cancel. So we end up with n equals 18 divided by 9, which is 2. Let's try another example. n/14 equals 3/7. You can do this one mentally. The answer would be 6. And the reason we know that is because 6 divided by 2 equals 3, and 14 divided by 2 equals 7. But if you want, you can cross multiply, so you get n times 7 equals 3 times 14. So at this point we have 7n equals 42. The 7 and n are connected through multiplication, so to get rid of the 7 we have to do the opposite, which is divide. Whatever you do to the left, you have to do the same thing to the right to maintain the balance. So you end up with n equals 42/7, or n equals 6. How about this one? 5/7 equals n/20. This one's not quite as easy because 7 and 20 are not directly related in terms of multiplication. So we will have to cross multiply. 5 times 20 equals n times 7. So now we have 100 equals 7n. Notice that the n this time is on the right-hand side. We still want to get n by itself, so we have to get rid of what's attached to it. That would be 7. The 7 and n are connected through multiplication, so we're going to divide by 7. Whatever you do to the right, you have to do to the left. So our final answer is 100/7, or you can write it as 14 2/7 when you convert it to a mixed number. One more example. 15/20 equals 12/n. Again, this is not as easy of a problem because 15 and 12 are not directly related in terms of division. Let's cross multiply. 15 times n equals 12 times 20. And then we have 15n equals 240. To get n by itself, you have to divide by 15 on both sides of the equation. So we have 240 divided by 15. That gives us an even answer of 16. Something I do want to mention is that both fractions reduce to 3/4. In other words, if we plug in our answer 16, we have 15 over 20 equals 12 over 16. Both 15 over 20 and 12 over 16 can reduce to 3/4.